Nice suit. Nice suit. Matches.
Good shit. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Rarely have I seen this chapel filled to this extent, and for so many people who have come through this morning to express their love and appreciation, their relationship with your beloved husband and father and grandfather and your brother Peter. It's because so many in the community and so many who couldn't be here today were touched by this remarkable man. And so the sense of mourning and your grief is shared in a widespread fashion because of all the people he influenced and touched in his life. No more than you, of course. So, facing the grief of your loss, I wish to offer perhaps the most recognizable and certainly the most beloved of all the poetry written in the Jewish tradition that we are all familiar with, the 23rd Psalm. And I hope that as you hear these words, they will bring you a measure of comfort and consolation. So for you, Jackie and Bob, for you, Stephanie and Nick, for you, and Suzanne and Woody and Kenny, for you, and Alex and Eric and Ryan and Jake and Ashley, nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, friends and neighbors, as you hear these ancient words, I hope they'll bring you a measure of God's presence and comfort in the face of your loss. Mizmor LeDavid, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Of all the people you know, of all the lives you have touched and who have touched yours, it would be difficult for me to believe that you've encountered anyone else as incredible as Peter Schneider. Goodness and mercy followed him all the days of his life, unless, of course, it was off the ball field. Because on the field and on the court and on the range and every place else that you know, he would be rejoicing. He loved it. That was his goodness. That was his joy. To be able to hold the ball and to be in your presence. But the truth of the matter is, it's not my words that are the most important words today. It's what you have to say. It's what you've said to each other. It's the memories you've shared. It's the narrative of his life that you will continue to share through your lives. And so it is with a great sense of privilege that I call before us first his son-in-law, Nick, with Ashley, and then his brother Kenny, and dear friends John and Kat.
Ashley's going to be my rock. So I'm going to need it, I think. It's a pretty good turnout. I think Pete would be happy. No matter how many people he's argued with in the room today. I heard some of them as folks walked up. Let me bring my reading glasses. I'm getting to that age that I probably needed them. I didn't really think about it. But I didn't write a speech. I just kind of put down some bullets. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nick, Stephanie's husband, Pete's son-in-law, the younger son-in-law. You probably figured as you came by. But I've never done this before, so bear with me. It's gonna be tough to get through. But it's been a tough couple of years watching Pete, especially for Fremont. So he's in a better place. But watching him, and those of you that know him, how he lived his life with people, he was a people person. Right? And as I thought about this and writing things, he was about family, friends, as the rabbi said, sports. And that's where a lot of the arguments happen, as we know. And we had family over last night, and as I was thinking about this, they confirmed some of the stories that I was thinking about. It's amazing, and I'll always remember them. And he was competitive, and so I kind of think about from the sports side, just little stories here and there, and I'll go into it a little bit, but I've never seen anyone more into fantasy baseball. I mean, I don't know if anybody from the Phillies are here, but this is pre-internet. I mean, he looked at the papers and studied them, and I don't know if Richard's here or not, but his partner, he would probably call him like every day. Who are we going to pick up? What are we going to do? He just wanted to win, no matter what. Monday night basketball, John, we're going to talk later. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but he had to create the teams, and he would get there early. And I don't know how, if they played after he was there. I don't know how they made teams. He would think they would just stare at him. He would talk about his mailman at the store, and he'd say, he knows NBA talent better than anybody, and just ask my mailman. It's everything, right? He knew. We had a family fantasy football league. I wanted to get the boys into football a little bit. Probably like 5 or 6 years ago, we had a family fantasy football league. And he won the first one. And he was no holds barred. He wanted to win that. He was making moves. If he was playing Freeman, who knew nothing, if he asked for help, the center lineup, he wouldn't do it. And I never beat him at horse to this day. Kind of another thing that he could shoot. I thought just old people could shoot. No offense to the basketball guys here, but I still can't shoot, so I don't know. I guess it hasn't come yet. And then one thing, just on competitiveness, and I think this isn't about sports, but I remember the story. The neighbors next door would come over for the holidays, and their 6-year-old daughter, Samantha, would play a memory game right? And she's 6, right? You pick up and you say, okay, you get matches. He kicked her ass. He didn't care. It was, I mean, he no mercy. That's how competitive he was. And then we talked about traditions and the family traditions that he made, right? And friends too. So the Cancun trips with Harry and Ann every year in January and February. And me and Steph went down one year, and we couldn't hang. Like, they were doing shots, they were dancing line dances, and we were like 28, 29 years old, and they were like going crazy. We were there for 3 days. I mean, they did it for like 2 weeks. Every night happy hour. Sunday family dinners in the backyard, which we continue to this day, and we'll always do. And that's why we built the pool. That's something that we did. And they make steak. I mean, it was like a smorgasbord. There was steak, chicken cutlet, baked ziti, broccoli, and it doesn't matter. What are you doing? And then of course Ocean City, Maryland, and the memories from Ocean City, Maryland. And people know Pete was a creature of habit. We had to go to Dead Freddy's every Sunday night, or every Saturday night we got there. We had to go to Thrasher's Fries every Sunday. He had to pay for Thrasher's Fries no matter what. And then we would have to have a guys meeting on the first night of the boardwalk. And it was me, Bob, and Pete. And I was there probably, the boys are 4, Ashley's probably a newborn, on the boardwalk with like 5 kids. Like, okay, we gotta go have our guys meeting. And Steph's like giving me a look. I'm like, it's your dad. Nothing I can do, I'm gonna go. And then when Pete and Fran moved closer to us, they're just around the corner, which is a good thing. I'm very lucky. I have great in-laws, and I'm not just saying that. We would go over for Sunday breakfast. And if anybody that knows, Pete cooked 2 things. He made 2 things. He made potato pancakes and French toast. That was it. But they had to be, but we had to tell them. And they were good. They were good. They were the best, right? They had to tell them. And even to the point, we talk about competitiveness and the family traditions. To the point with the potato pancakes, he had a competition with his mom. And we had to have a blind taste test. And the family got together beforehand and said, who's going to vote for who? And it had to be a tie. If we were odd numbers, we would kick somebody out. It had to be a tie. So it was a tie. There's no doubt. And then even he would make French toast every Sunday. We would come over. And then to the point where he couldn't do it anymore, Freeman would do it. Anybody would say it's not as good as mine, right? And it had to be the best. And then last, the Cosmos on Christmas Eve. Right? For those of you, it's a very Jewish Christmas. Me and Bob are the only 2 people at Christmas Eve that aren't Jewish. It's better than Chinese in a movie. So Bob has taken over that tradition. They're not as good as Pete's. No offense, but that's and the potato. Bob's taking over the potato pancakes as well. A little salty. And then last thing, family. The pride. If you saw the pictures out front, the pride he had in his family and his grandchildren. And just went to every game. Alex, Eric, Ryan, Jake. He would go to Ashley's dance, I'm sure, right? He would go to your dance. But the pride he took in his family and his grandchildren. He went, like I said, he went to every game. He drove them to practice as he was retiring and later on. I coached the boys in baseball, and when he was going to the games, they were probably like 8 or 9. And if you remember, Pete had a flip phone still, right? I mean, he would text me from the stands as I'm on the field coaching about kids like having their shirt tucked out. And I would, I'm coaching. I'm not looking. You didn't. Number 4 didn't tuck his shirt in. And so on that, the boys know I really have one rule, maybe 2. One is no cell phones now in the dugout, which is that's understandable. So they still do it sometimes. And then the other one is, I didn't realize this until probably last night. Tuck in your shirt. That's not a tough rule, but tuck in your shirt. And Steph found this last night as she was going, and this is Pete to a T. She found this last night going through pictures. It was a note that he had written to me when he really wasn't talking as much anymore, but he was still going to games. And it's hand printed, and he gave this to me. And it says, "A uniform is a uniform. Everyone must tuck in their shirt. Otherwise, it is not, double underline, a uniform. Number 1 and number 4 did not, double underline, tuck in their shirt the entire first game. And then the next one is fundamentals. Catch the ball with 2 hands, especially if you find yourself consistently dropping it, with 1 hand. Bryce Harper catches the ball with 2 hands. That is just Pete to a T, to the end, like writing me instructions on what to do. So, I don't think I had anything else. There you got there. So Pete, we will miss you. We will have our memories, and we're always going to have your traditions, but we're going to be okay. Okay? Thank you. Go Phils.
Ken?
Hi, I'm the kid brother, one of them. My name is Kenny, and we had an odd distribution of children in my parents' family. Peter and my sister are 10 and 11 years older than me. There was a 10-year gap before I came along, and my younger brother came along a few years later. So Peter was a real big brother. He was 10 years older than me. And the stereotype of the big brother, little brother relationship has always been that the big brother resented the little brother for having obligations to babysit for him or to take care of him or to play with him. And the little brother always looked up to the big brother and tried not to be too much of a pest. But that's not what occurred with Peter and I. He was always happy to have me go along with him to play with his friends. We used to go upstairs to the neighbors and play Jeopardy every afternoon back in the era when the host was a guy named Art Fleming. And he used to bring me along as a ringer because he wanted to be on the side that won, so he always put me on his team. And he took me to my first basketball game. It was an NIT tournament in Madison Square Garden, the old Madison Square Garden, where there were pillars blocking your view. And as Nick pointed out, he lived for competition. He just loved to make everything a competition. And the most famous story that my younger brother Woody and I would clearly remember if Peter were here and he would join us in the conversation had to do with going to the dentist. My father was a tool and die maker, and there came a point in time where he joined the Teamsters Union and they gave us free dental care, but we were living in Queens and the dentist was in Brooklyn. So it was Peter's obligation to drive me and Woody to the dentist. And the route we took was on a road that at the time was called the Interborough Parkway, now it's called the Jackie Robinson Parkway. And it was a serpentine pathway that zigged and zagged. And the concept of the trip was to do 2 things. Number 1, listen to rock and roll on ABC AM radio. And number 2, to count how many cars Peter could pass on the road between Queens and Brooklyn. And I'm talking about hundreds of cars. And Woody and I would be calling out the numbers 1, 2, 3, 124, 125, and he would just be going by all these cars. And it's burned into my memory. I mean, how many great memories do we have from our childhood? And I'll never forget the trips on the Interborough Parkway to go to the dentist. His competitive instincts were just unbelievable. I mean, he's the only person you'll ever meet in your life you could say miniature golf could be a blood sport. He made Scrabble competitive. He had to win at everything. And I never really minded it because he was the big brother, and you wanted the big brother to be smart and powerful and know everything to do with you. Probably one of the most meaningful things he ever did that, again, from early childhood, and I'll never forget it, I guess it must have been 1963, and I was in the bedroom, and he came over and he knocked on the door and he said, come out here right now. It was a Sunday night, and everyone knows what you watched on Sunday night in that era. You watched Ed Sullivan, and he said, you gotta see these 4 guys from England. They're the biggest thing in the world. They're called the Beatles. You gotta see this. He was my older brother, and he went out of his way to make sure that I was caught up with the Beatles, and that was really my introduction to music and rock and roll. And Peter was always an enormous fan of mostly top 40 music in the 60s. He knew every doo-wop group in the world. You could never try and catch him on the name of a group singing a doo-wop song because he knew them all. And throughout our lives, he always kept me in touch with regard to his years with the 76ers. I knew that Julius Erving was about to sign a contract before he did. He always felt like an insider. He used to take Woody and I down. We would come down from New York and he would take us to the 76er games, and we'd go into the locker room afterwards and hang out with basketball players. And he was a terrific older brother. And we're going to miss him enormously. Whatever his quirks were with regards to competitiveness and rules and everything else, he nevertheless was absolutely dedicated to his family. Family, sports, and number 3, I would put down politics, because anyone who Peter knew, he was never shy about expressing his politics. And he always made very cogent arguments for his political points of view, and he had a big influence on me throughout my life. I almost held back on forming political opinions until I heard his take on things, because he always made logical arguments, and it was a big influence. We're going to miss Peter. He really was a creature of habit, as Nick pointed out. But those habits always encompassed everyone in the family. We never missed a Thanksgiving for decades. The family would be together, and there'll be an emptiness this year. It won't be the same. Thank you all for coming.
John? And Jim?
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm very grateful that Nick and Freeman asked me to say a few words. My name is John McCruden. I'm a long-time, probably 40-year friend of Pete's. And I'm grateful to be able to say a few things. Now, there are so many things and stories I could talk about that could go on forever, but you have to remember, as Nick and Pete's brother said, Pete did have his rules. And one evening during a spirited conversation about speeches, and Pete had a way of listening and then just saying one thing that made the most sense. We would all talk, and all of a sudden there was a moment of silence, and Pete looked up and said, "John, whatever you say, keep it short." And I always remember that, so I will do my best, Pete. Most of us knew Pete and met Pete through his sneaker store, Sneaks and Seat in Voorhees, where he sold sneakers and tickets. We bought our sneakers and tickets for ourselves and our families through Pete. But you didn't just go to buy things from Pete, you went to socialize and talk sports, and you could stop in on a Saturday morning and just visit. He'd be reading the daily news, and you could get all the inside scoop because, as his brother said, he did seem to have sources somewhere along the line. But heaven forbid if you showed up anywhere wearing sneakers that weren't purchased at Pete's. He would give you an evil eye and say, "John, did he buy them from me?" And, that wasn't a good thing. But that led to a long basketball relationship with us and many guys that are here today, probably 40 years, once a week. For 40 years we played and went out afterwards, and I think we played for an excuse to go out afterwards. But Pete kind of became the de facto leader of our group, and as Nick said, Pete picked the teams, Pete picked where we were going to go out. Pete split up the bill and told you how much you owed to the dollar, which we all questioned, but that was kind of the highlight of the night. But when you didn't play until Pete picked the team, you went and walked around and waited, and Pete would analyze who was there, and then he would make the formal announcement of who was on whose team, and then we'd all roll our eyes because somehow Pete always had the good team. As you can imagine. We pretty much discussed the same thing every night: sports, movies, television, food. No religion, no politics. That was Pete's rule, which was good, I think, for all of us. And we would talk, and Pete would listen, but he always seemed to chime in with a cryptic piece of humor or something that made more sense than anybody. And while he was opinionated, he was usually right, and we all kind of asked Pete's thoughts about everything. And he didn't let you, as Nick said, didn't let you forget when he was right. And one great story is my good friend Mike and I were invited to an event at the Wells Fargo Center, and there was a reception afterwards, and Ed Stefanski Jr., who was the general manager of the Sixers at the time, came up and introduced himself, and we knew that Pete knew him. So we said, oh, by the way, we're friends with Pete Schneider. He says, oh, yeah, I know Pete. And we said, well, Pete just wanted us to let you know that you should be drafting Seth Curry in the first round. And Ed went, oh, okay, well, we have him on our list. But can you imagine if he'd have listened to Pete, what the Sixers would be like? And of course, he never let us forget that. But Pete was a wonderful person. He was kind, compassionate, thoughtful. If you had an injury or didn't feel well, you could expect a call from Pete. He said thank you when you did something, and he expected thank yous in return, which is okay. He, as Larry Brown said, he wanted to play basketball the right way, and he wanted you to live your life the right way. He wanted you to act properly and dress properly to go to certain events and conduct yourself properly. And you could always get an idea from Pete how to do that, and we all appreciated it. He was so proud of his daughters, Jackie and Stephanie, and his family, and his wonderful relationship with Freema. And Freema, what you did for him the last few years is, unprecedented. He was a special person that we all have missed the last few years. He just wasn't the same, and we missed having him around. I think the sign of a true friend is when they leave indelible memories with you. You can be out and about, and all of a sudden something will trigger a memory of that friend. What would Pete have said? Or do you remember that time Pete did this, and then you laugh? What a better way to have a friend. And Pete would appreciate if you remembered him and had a good laugh. That would make him feel good. So we have missed him. We will miss him. I will miss him. I will miss talking Phillies and Sixers. Can you imagine what he would have done this year? And he was a true friend to all of us. And we miss him. He was a wonderful husband, brother, father, grandfather, uncle. He was a good friend to all of us. And we will miss him. And I wish him well. Rest in peace, Pete. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jim, but I'm not going to be as eloquent as the rest. For those of you who never turned right on red, while Pete is behind you, or didn't follow Pete's directions while driving, but especially those of you who bought sneakers at Modell's for $5 less and sneaks and seats today, you are forgiven. To Freeman, Jackie, Stephanie, Alex, Eric, Jake, Ryan, and Ashley, he loved you all, and I know that from all our conversations, while riding as a passenger, while going to a game or dinner, or to a b-ball court for over 25 years. And by the way, Bob and Nick, he loved you guys also. He was so happy that he had two caring sons-in-law. To Jackie and Stephanie, he was in awe of you both as you grew into young women. But he was sorry he didn't attend all your activities in your youth because of a sneaker fitting at a high school, or at a Phillies game, or closing the store. To you, Freeman, his love and admiration for you was at the utmost. As a wife, partner, mother, and also in your business life. So what makes up the man? Pete could become impatient quickly, but tip service generously. He could be gruff, but only because he cared. He loved to be a host, especially Monday night backyard basketball. He enjoyed going out to dinner with a bunch of couples and going to Mexico with Harry and Amy. He would go out of his way to attend a sporting event of his friends' children. Need tickets to a sporting event or concert? No problem. Call Pete. Pete's Sunday pancakes was always on tap at the Schneiders. He loved arguing sports and at the bar with the guys. The problem was Pete was usually right. So with this, I'll say, Pete, a person of caring, family, and friends, as you can see. Pete, we will always miss you and think of you always. Thank you.
Carol?
Thank you, Freema, for inviting me to say a few words about Peter. Peter and Freema and my husband and I moved into Montebello about the same time. They from just down the street, and us from Connecticut, foreigners to South Jersey. It was a busy winter for all of us, but early in the spring, one of those special April days, I bumped into Freema outside. We began chatting, and she asked if I would like to join them for dinner, and of course, I was anxious to meet people and said yes. Well, that was the beginning of a very special friendship. Now about Peter. Peter took on the task of teaching me the area. Whenever we were in the car, he would point out landmarks, restaurants, offices, places where Freema worked. And of course, every baseball field, every football field, every soccer field, and every basketball court. But most importantly, he told me which roads I could speed on, and which roads I would get a ticket. On one of these trips, I asked Peter about a dumpy-looking bar and grill we were passing. He said, "Carol, that's a dive. I go there with my basketball buddies." So I said, "Well, I like dives, Peter. Do you think we could go sometime? You like dives?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Sure, I'll take you." As a matter of fact, that was the beginning of my real tours of South Jersey. As you all know, Peter's speech became difficult, especially by last winter. Well, one day I stopped in on my way off someplace, and I was a little dressed up. I had just had my hair done. Peter looked up at me, as clear as could be, and said, "You look very nice." Those were beautiful words then, and they will remain in my memory forever. I miss my friend.
Well, in keeping with Pete's tradition, the rabbi bats cleanup. And in keeping with his tradition, I will be brief. All the wonderful things we've heard and all the wonderful things we know, and how fortunate we all feel to have lived in Pete's sphere. Even I didn't even know it, because many of us from New York City would go up to the Catskills. And believe it or not, I think my camp may have played his camp, your camp, in softball or basketball at some point. What an incredibly small world. But here's what I'd like to say. Everything you've heard points, from my perspective, to one conclusion. Even though Pete's bar mitzvah was in a garage, a parking garage somewhere in Queens, You now must understand and appreciate that you have all lived in the presence of a rabbi. Pete has been your rabbi. How do I know? Rabbis look at the world through 3 sets of glasses: tradition, competition, and communication. You've all heard the traditions. And the competition, what do you think we rabbis really do? We argue, we yell, we look for the core values, and we propose what we believe with integrity and a sense of goodness, and most importantly, learning to improve the lives of other people. Maybe you didn't realize it, but sports was his Talmud. Sports and all the statistics and all the games and all the competition. Perhaps in another era, he would have been a Talmud student. Because that's where the Jewish community learned and taught debate and arguing and fastidiousness and tuck in your shirt. Where do you think he got it from? And communication. That was his profession. That was his academic preparation. And he was a great communicator, verbally and in written form. Well, that's what rabbis do. They take in as much information as they possibly can, and then they have to give it. They can't keep it inside. All that Talmud, all that biblical text, all that arguing and discussion, it's all taken in order to give it. And to give it to family and colleagues and friends, and in a sense make everyone part of family. So if you've lived with Pete's traditions, his competitions, and his communications, you lived with a rabbi. You may not have known it, but you did. And each of us rabbis, well, we choose our message individually. And his message was such a great one. Love. Love the people you love and let them know it. Love your siblings and let them know. Love your children and let them know. Love your grandchildren and let them know. And love your partner in life. Friend, you're so fortunate to have met a man who was obviously so much larger than life. And you probably never realized you were living with a rabbi. But you are. With all the craziness, and yes, all the bars and all the drinks and all the Christmas Eves, the truth of the matter is, the core of the man was what rabbi really means. Teacher, guide, counselor, advisor, perhaps the wisest one in the room who could make your life better, happier, more fulfilled. That's who and what he was. And he just chose sports and tickets and sneakers to do it. That was his Talmud. And you, every one of us, we learned. And now let's do what rabbis hope everyone in the congregation would do. Take the message and live better. Take the message. Living better means making someone else's life better because of the message you heard from the man. I know you all caught his message. Want to keep him alive? You can. Be the rabbi to someone who needs you. Be wise. Don't be afraid to debate. Live with integrity, honesty, and goodness. Be kind. Call people who need your phone call. And most importantly, a uniform is a uniform. Tuck in your shirt. May his soul rest in peace. His memory assured, and his legacy in each and every one of us privileged to have known, learned, and loved the man. Amen. We rise for the El Molei Rachamim, followed by Kaddish. El Molei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Lenishmat Asher ben Chava v'Yaakov Halevi, Shahalach Lo'olamo, Baal Harachamim, Yitzrur B'Yitzrur HaChaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar, Amen. God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest unto Peter, the son of Evelyn and Jack, for he has departed from this world. Lord of mercy, bring him into thy presence, and may his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may his repose be peace, peace eternal, the peace reserved for the truly righteous, not self-righteous, but righteous of heart and spirit and soul, who makes the world a better place. And may we say, Amen. We recite the Kaddish together. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabo, v'yalmad yivrach Yerusei, v'yamlich malchusei, v'chaye chon v'yomei chon, v'chaye d'chol beis Yisrael, ba'agalav v'zman kariv, v'imaru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabo mevorach, le'olam ol'olmei mayo, yisparach v'yishtabach, v'yispa'or v'yisromam v'yisnaseh, v'yisadar v'yisaleh v'yishalal, shemei t'kudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchasa v'shirasa, tush b'chasa v'nechemasa, da'amiran b'yalma v'imaru, Amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemayo v'chaim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imaru, Amen. You might have been surprised that I would call Peter Schneider a rabbi. But I can tell you this. God was not surprised. May his soul rest in peace. Amen. Our service here is concluded. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, one final announcement before we escort the casket out. The family has asked me to invite everyone back to Nick and Stephanie's home. We do have directions out in the lobby. It is their home in Voorhees, so everyone, please, if you would like to attend, the family has invited everyone here. Immediately after, they're going to be going, right after the service here today. And once again, we do have directions and the location out in the lobby. And at this time, we would ask if everyone would rise once more, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll ask if everyone could please take seats for just a moment, please.
You gotta stay here.
Five-shot lead for turn.